Hello, we are in the Julian chapter and we are in chapter 21, and this chapter is titled Julian. "Oh my God," I cried. "That's why you named Dad Julian." Even though everyone called him Jules, that was his name. "Oui," she said, nodding. "And I'm named after Dad," I said. "So I'm named after this kid. That is so cool." She smiled and ran her fingers through my hair, but she didn't say anything. Then I remembered her saying, "The last time I saw Totoro." "So what happened to him?" I asked. "To Julian." Almost instantaneously, tears rolled down Grandmamma's cheeks. "The Germans took him," she said, "that same day. He was on his way to school. They were making another sweep of the village that morning. By now, Germany was losing the war, and they knew it." "But," I said, "he wasn't even Jewish." "They took him because he was crippled," she said between sobs. "I'm sorry, I know you told me that word is a bad word, but I don't know another word in English. He was an invalid. That is the word in French, and that is why they took him. He was not perfect." She practically spat out the word. They took all the imperfects from that village that day. It was a purge. The gypsies, the shoemaker's son who was simple, and Julian, my Totoro. They put him in a cart with the others, and then he was put on a train to Drancy, and from there to Auschwitz, like my mother. We heard later from someone who saw him there that they sent him to the gas chambers right away. Just like that, poof, he was gone. My savior, my little Julian. She stopped to wipe her eyes with a handkerchief and then drank the rest of the wine. His parents were devastated, of course. "M. Beaumer and Madame Beaumer," she continued. "We didn't find out he was dead until after the liberation, but we knew. We knew." She dabbed her eyes. "I lived with them for another year after the war. They treated me like a daughter. They were the ones who helped track down Papa, although it took some time to find him. So much chaos in those days. When Papa finally was able to return to Paris, I went to live with him. But I always visited the Baumieres, even when they were very old. I never forgot the kindness they showed me." She sighed. She had finished her story. "Grandmamma," I said, after a few minutes, "that's like the saddest thing I've ever heard. I didn't even know you were in the war. I mean, Dad's never talked about any of this." She shrugged. "I think it's very possible that I never told your father this story," she said. "I don't like to talk about sad things, you know. In some ways, I am still the frivolous girl I used to be. But when I heard you talking about that little boy in your school, I could not help but think of Totoro, of how afraid I had once been of him, of how badly we had treated him because of his deformity. Those children had been so mean to him, Julian. It breaks my heart to think of it." When she said that, I don't know, something just really broke inside of me, completely unexpected. I looked down and all of a sudden I started to cry. And when I say I started to cry, I don't mean a few tears rolling down my cheeks. I mean like full-scale, snot-filled crying. "Julian," she said softly. I shook my head and covered my face with my hands. "I was terrible, Grandmamma," I whispered. "I was so mean to Augie. I'm so sorry, Grandma Mare. Julian, she said again, look at me. No, look at me, mon cher. She took my face in her hands and forced me to look at her. I felt so embarrassed. I really couldn't look at her in the eyes. Suddenly, that word that Mr. Tushman had used, that word that everyone kept trying to force on me, came to me like a shout. Remorse. Yeah, there it was. That word in all its glory. Remorse. I was shaking with remorse. I was crying with remorse. Julian, said Grandma Mare, we all make mistakes, mon cher. No, you don't understand, I answered. It wasn't just one mistake. I was those kids who were mean to Totoro. I was the bully, Grandma. It was me. She nodded. I called him a freak. I laughed behind his back. I left mean notes, I screamed. Mom kept making excuses for why I did that stuff, but there wasn't any excuse. I just did it. And I don't even know why. I don't even know. I was crying so hard I couldn't even speak. Grandma Mara stroked my head and hugged me. Julian, she said softly, you are so young. The things you did, you know they were not right, but that does not mean you are not capable of doing right. It only means that you choose to do wrong. This is what I mean when I say you made a mistake. It was the same with me. I made a mistake with Totoro. But the good thing about life, Julian, she continued, is that we can fix our mistakes sometimes. We learn from them. We get better. I never made a mistake like the one I made with Totoro again, not with anyone in my life. And I have a very, very long life. You will learn from your mistake too. You must promise yourself that you will never behave like that with anyone else again. One mistake does not define you, Julian. Do you understand me? You must simply act better next time. I nodded, but I still cried for a long, long time after that. And that's the end of chapter 21.